I heard they mad, I deserve to brag. I'm in my bottom line Birkin bag, and I ain't trying to waste a whole lot of time with this rhyme. But after this, we getting straight to the bottom line.
All right, welcome back for another episode of The Expensive Truth with Bottom Line Burke. This is episode 8, and I'm excited. I have the esteemed privilege to interview not just a mentor of mine, but also a friend. This is Wayne Budd, a former U.S. District Attorney, now currently a senior counsel at Goodwin Proctor, and we're just gonna have a good time like we always do. And Wayne, welcome, man. How you doing this morning?
Hey, Jamal, or should I say bottom line? It's good
whatever feels most comfortable, you know?
Well, it's good to be with you, my friend. And as you know, we go back a few years now, and I followed your career, and I've been so proud of you over the years, tracing back to your days at Boston College. So yeah, I've been a fan for a long time, my friend.
Yeah, man. No, I appreciate it. I've been a fan of yours, you know, since the first time we sat down together. Do you know it's been about 20 years now?
It's going on that, yes.
Yeah. So, you know, I know, you know, you spend a lot of time, you know, in the Cape and things like that. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on what do you think about the Jazz Festival? I know that was something that a lot of people go out there and partake in.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. It's great for the not just the entertainment value, but it's also important to the economy of the Cape. We all had a bad year, and continuing to a certain extent with this pandemic, which is unprecedented in our lifetimes. But I think it's very important. There's a lot of pent-up emotion, a lot of pent-up energy, and this will be serve as, I think, a positive release of some of that energy.
No, absolutely. And one of the positive releases that you and I, you know, talk often about is our experience in time at Boston College. And I know it was just a few years ago when you was appointed the decision of making the choice of what college you was going to decide. What made you decide ultimately to pick Boston College? Can you kind of describe what was going on at that particular time?
Well, you know, the way you led into that question, it makes it sound as if you were classmates. But, you know, I'm coming up, Jamal, I'm coming up on 60 years since I graduated from Boston College.
That's beautiful.
And as you may recall, I'm from Springfield, Massachusetts.
Correct, I do.
Yeah. And growing up there and going to high school in Springfield, I went to a Catholic high school. And in those days, the nuns who taught there tried to push those of us who were going on or had ideas of going on to college toward Catholic schools.
Okay.
And so somebody introduced me to or talked to me about Boston College. Living in Springfield, I didn't know much about Boston, but I thought it'd be a good place to come to go to school. And, you know, it was the only place I applied, BC, and was admitted. It was a lot easier in those days. Most of the students, Jamal, were what we call day hops. They were day students.
Yeah.
Maybe about a third of the student body, in my class at least, lived in the dorms. For the most part, the people traveled in by trolley, or by the streetcar out to BC. And, you know, it's interesting because it was a different school, very conservative school. In my class of about 1,500 people, there were 2 African Americans. Wow. We had, that was it. We had no people of color on our sports teams, football, basketball, track, baseball, no people of color at all. So it was a different place. And, you know, do you know that I had the nerve to run for class president and got elected?
well, knowing you as well as I do, the audacity, I know, you know, there's a book out there, The Audacity of Hope, but you always have that and you exude that in your life. When you look back at it, is always these pivotal moments where it's evident.
Well, maybe it's just that I didn't know any better. So.
That too. That definitely too. You know, Well, can you talk about a little bit some of the challenges? Because I know even when I went to Boston College in 1998, that was still a subject matter at the heart of a lot of Black and brown people that were just regular students. I know as athletes, we were fortunate to have a nice melting pot that we could communicate with and confide in and things of that nature. I'm reminded of Quincy Jones when he said, sometimes he says, not a drop of my self-worth depends on your acceptance of me. Can you just kind of talk about some of the landscape or the climate at that time and kind of how you navigated through it?
Okay. I was fortunate in two respects, Jamal. One was I did make quite a few friends at BC from my white colleagues or my white classmates and other students that I knew. And so that was very helpful, but it still left a void.
Right.
And that void was addressed, at least in part, by the fact that I joined a African-American fraternity, Omega Psi Phi. And that gave me the balance.
Yes.
That was so very helpful and got you through times when you felt a little bit alone.
Right.
So I was able to go off campus and have good friendships, particularly among people of color.
Right.
And I was able to have friendships while I was on the campus. So all in all, Boston College was a very positive experience for me.
Right.
Not just during that time when I was at the school, but over the course of my career, Jamal, as I think back on it, a lot of the opportunities that I've had would have Boston College fingerprints on it. It may have been from the then president, Father Monin, who supported me in a lot of different ways. It may have been from classmates or fellow alums. I did serve on the board of trustees for a number of years at Boston College. I did serve on the board. And believe it or not, I taught at the law school as a member of the adjunct faculty for a number of years. And I think you also know that two of my sons-in-law were football players at BC, one of whom I think helped coach you, right?
No,
Bill
Well, he was
Thompson.
a little bit before me if you're referring to Bill Thompson.
Yeah, my son-in-law.
He's a couple years before me.
Okay, but so we're more or less a BC family. One of my daughters graduated from the school and a niece. So we consider ourselves a BC family. And as I say, my experience at Boston College has held up well for me over the years. I consider myself very fortunate to have gone there, even though it wasn't perfect and it's not perfect now. But overall, the experience was positive.
No, absolutely. And I echo the same sentiments, Wayne. My experience at Boston College overall was very positive. And similar to you, I leaned on, some of the faculty that, took a liking to me and helped guide me in kind of figuring out what I wanted to do when I grew up. And, what's woven in a lot of our conversations just now is the importance of networking, because both you and I have benefited, it sounds like, both personally and also tremendously professionally. Yeah. Can you talk about the importance of networking? Because so often, a lot of times what I find is shortly thereafter, once people graduate, whether you're an athlete or a regular student, sometimes that wind isn't as strong to network because it's up to you.
Yes, yes. And by the way, I wouldn't find it hard to believe that some of the faculty members found you to be a very interesting person and would want to network with you. So I'm very confident in understanding that point. Right. Networking has been an important part of my own career, both in the context of Boston College, as well as outside of BC. And when people that I talk to and those that I mentor, I always suggest to get involved in your professional life in what I call extracurricular activities. And that is become a part of maybe a not-for-profit group, or perhaps do some civil rights work, or civics, public service, all those kinds of things, because they help you not only in networking, not only in giving back to the community that you come from and the broader community as well, but it also helps in skills development. So in many instances, I would find joining a board or becoming a part of a committee, they will say, well, geez, you're a lawyer by background. Why don't you be the chairman? Why don't you be on this task force? Why don't you participate on this board? And from that, not only did I have the chance to network, not only did I have a chance to do good, but it was also good for skills development. And what I mean by that is you learn leadership skills, communication, both verbal as well as written, how to get a group to work to consensus. So I'm a great one for believing in networking, but also see that there are collateral benefits. And those collateral benefits I've been able to apply in different positions I've been fortunate enough to have over the course of my career.
Yeah, I think that's outstanding. I think that's a lot of some of the nuances and things that are unintended benefits that happen when you're doing the right thing and you engage and you're actually getting involved for the right reasons. Another skill set is being able to differentiate between transactional relationships and personal relationships. How do you keep them separate, and what's your approach? Can you kind of define how the difference between transactional relationships versus personal?
Well, just in a word or two, while they appear on their face to be different, oftentimes I find that there's considerable overlap.
Okay.
And so they do, on occasion, merge. Yes, I have had business relationships over the course of my time in the practice of law, where I've spent the bulk of my career, both in the private and the public sector. And I've also had some wonderful friendships, including, but not limited to you, my friend. So that's, you keep them separate in some ways, but sometimes the overlap has a very positive effect. And I'm always trying to learn from other people. So sometimes I learn transactional type skills from my personal relationships and vice versa.
Right.
Yeah. So
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I
makes
appreciate the overlap.
Yeah, there's a lot of gray sometimes.
Yes.
And and I think those are where sometimes people, the complexity of human spirit, we could go either way and things of that nature. But one of the things I find fascinating to you, and actually the last time you and I sat down pre-COVID, you said something that still has an imprint on me. When at the end of our breakfast, you said, "Hey, Jamal, I just want you to know, I still don't admit or say that I'm successful when, quite frankly, they haven't made a screen that fits all your accomplishment on it yet." Can you talk about that? Because because I just had a conversation yesterday about humility and how important it is if you want to acquire certain information from somebody who may be a little bit more further up the ladder than you. How important it is to show humility to get that meeting or have that phone call.
Well, I define success a little bit differently than maybe others do, maybe not. But I do believe that I've always tried to take what I did seriously, but not take myself seriously, not get self-enamored.
Yes. But
I define success in this way, Jamal. First of all, one has or works to keep good health, good physical health, and good emotional and mental health. I think that's very important. I think having good family relations is a sign of success and is very important. Having good friends is very important and a part of being successful. Being respected in the community where you live and work feeling as if you're making some accomplishments in what you undertake to do. And last and least, doing well financially.
Okay.
But I put that at the bottom of the ladder. So I've enjoyed along the way, not complete success, but signs of success with family, with good health, with respect, and so on. So I don't see success as having the biggest car or the biggest house or making the biggest bank account. I don't put it in that direction. And while I say I've had some success, success is a very elusive concept.
I agree.
And you can always do better. And then I apply those elements that I just mentioned as being signs of success. And have I been totally successful? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Right.
But I also say I know very few people who could, in all good conscience, say, yes, I'm totally successful. Always have been, always will be.
Right. Now, all right. So yeah. So it took me 366 days to get to elaborate on that. But no, you said very poignant points, powerfully said, and I agree with you. I was fortunate, as you know, to have a cup of tea, as they say in the NFL, with
Sure.
the NFL, Dolphins, Cowboys, Bills, and I've come across a lot of people who financially multimillionaires. So the bankroll is fat and full, but what's bankrupt is all the thing that you alluded to, the family, the friends, and you also mentioned the importance of emotional health and things of that nature. Can you talk about the difference between emotional intelligence, EQ, versus IQ? Because I think so much society puts so much emphasis on intelligence, but once you start to be successful, anxiety and everything like that increases. And so being able to emotionally be able to have that awareness is just as important as well.
Well, you raise a very good question. As a lawyer, I would say that I have a pretty good skill set, but it's not a great one. I'm not. Nobody has ever accused me of being the brightest bulb on the tree. However, I have had some luck in developing along the way interpersonal skills, so that I think I can walk into a room and size it up, figure out what some of the motivations are of some of the people in the room. How do I best get them to follow a direction that I may want to pursue, and that I think is for the benefit of whatever this problem or body might be. So I see the two running hand in hand. I've seen people who have tremendous IQs and have a great knowledge of the law, but they're not necessarily at the top of the heap in a particular law firm or in a work setting, because some of them may lack the interpersonal skills, the ability to get along with other people, to have the ability to have others follow your point of view, the ability to drive a problem or a situation to consensus to solve a particular problem. So IQ alone, no, it doesn't do it. You certainly need to have a healthy amount of interpersonal skills, or as some say, emotional intelligence, to be what I think is truly successful. I always figured, as I went along, if I needed a smart guy, or man or woman, to do something, I could hire them. You can't always find somebody who can combine the IQ with the interpersonal skills. That's my sense of it.
Well, one of the most important things when you're negotiating is to make sure in the end, they say both sides to hurt a little bit, but ultimately you want it to be collaborative. And one of the skill sets in negotiate, you want to be positive. You want to leave on a positive note. But like you said earlier, you could size up a room just going in and kind of see the angle. Can you share one of the stories that I hold dearly to myself? I think you shared this the first time we met, and then shortly thereafter you repeated it. Can you share the story about the law professor in Detroit? I think it was at the Wayne
Law School.
Okay. Because I haven't Googled you yet, Wayne. In all our years, I've never Googled you. I'm not gonna. Never gonna. But that's a story for another day. But can you share? Can you share that story? Because I think it can help so many others overcome other people's opinions or judgment of you.
Okay. So when I got out of BC, I decided to go to work. Yeah. But I always knew I wanted to go to law school. But Jamal, it wasn't to be a lawyer. I just thought that having a law school background would be a good platform from which I could do other things.
Okay. Just real quick, what did you major in at BC with?
Economics.
Economics.
School of Arts and Science.
Okay.
So what I did was I took a job, which was unusual at that time, at Ford Motor Company out in Detroit, Michigan. Okay. I didn't know anybody in Detroit, but I decided I'll take this job. It paid the lofty sum of, and it really was a good money in those days, $6,500 a year.
Okay. This is back in the 60s, right? This is back in the 60s, correct?
That's correct. All right, 1963. Yeah, I was living high on that $6,500 a year. But I also said, why don't I go to law school at night?
Okay.
And it was advised that, if you're going to go to Detroit and you're going to go to law school, go to Wayne State University Law School. That's the best law school in Detroit. Okay. And I didn't go there because my name and Wayne were one and the same. But I went there, and it was a 4-year program. We went 5 nights a week. In the second year in constitutional law, I had an unusual experience for me. Yeah. It was the first time I had a black teacher. Okay. Through all my schooling, I had never had a black teacher. So I had a black professor, in fact, 2. And it was very unusual for those days. But this one guy taught constitutional law, and it was a full-year course. Okay. And he said, the only thing that's going to count in your grade for my course, we start in September, we end in June, is going to be the final exam in June. So we go through the year, and he's a very tough guy. He's very demanding. We had obligatory attendance, and I sat, because of alphabetical order, I sat in the first row middle with the last name Bud.
Yeah, I share the same. I share the same thing, Burke and Bud. Yeah.
There you go. You would have sat right by me.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So we go through the whole year, and it's a difficult course. It's a difficult year. And at the end of the last day of class, but a week before the examination, where everything's going to count, he dismisses the class, and everybody's leaving. They're grumbling about this upcoming exam and all that. There was about 120 of us in the class. And as I'm gathering my stuff and going out the door, he said, "Hey, excuse me, wait a minute, I want to talk to you." I said, "Oh, okay." He says, he happened to be from Boston, Massachusetts.
Oh, wow.
And I was from Massachusetts myself. So, I felt there may have been some sort of kinship there, but little did I know. So he said, "Look, I'm going to do you a favor." And I said, I bet this guy's going to give me the answers to the final exam. And how should I handle that? But it was something quite different. He said, "You may not appreciate this one today, but one day you'll thank me." And I said, "Uh-oh, what is this going to be?" He said, "I've decided to flunk you out of law school." And I said, "Well, wait a minute. The exam's next week. And everything rides on the exam." He said, yeah, I know I said that. But I've been watching you. And, you don't have what it takes to be a lawyer. You don't have the ability. You're taking up a seat somebody else could use. You're wasting a teacher's time. And I think I'm going to get rid of you. Wow. Well, in those days, Jamal, I didn't see I had any there's anything I could do about that. Today, and I taught law school, today, if I said that to a student, back in the days when I taught, that student would be in the dean's office before I could walk out of the classroom. And I'd be on the hot seat. But I didn't think that was available to me. This guy, somehow I passed the exam, but I passed it not because of him, but because they marked it on a curve. That same teacher went to Howard University the following year as a visiting professor. And he ran into a guy from Massachusetts who said, Professor Quick, his name was Charles Quick. Professor Quick, do you know Wayne Budd? He's at Wayne Law. He said, know him. I had to get rid of him. He didn't have what it takes. Wow. So my friend, of course, called in sympathy, and I said, don't worry, I'm still here. Fast forward to my last year of law school. Whenever I see he's back, whenever I see him, I go the other way. 2 weeks before graduation, our paths cross. And I see him, we bump into each other. He's smoking a cigarette. In those days, you could smoke in the buildings and all that. Cigarette's hanging out of his mouth. He says, hey, wait a minute. Don't I know you? I said, well, you had me in, constitutional law class a couple of years ago. He said, yeah, I remember now. I thought I got rid of you. Wow. I said, well, I'm cute now because I'm 2 weeks from graduation. You can't do anything. Right. And he says, so what are you doing here? I said, well, I'm graduating in 2 weeks. He said, he shakes his head. He says, geez, I don't know how that happened. And so he said, well, then what do you plan to do? I said, well, actually, I'm going back to Massachusetts and I'm going to practice law. And this guy, I don't know if you've ever had the experience when you're standing with somebody, people moving around and all around you, and that person starts to laugh. And you feel a little silly because, people looking at you, And so I said, I'm sorry, I don't see what's so funny. He said, look, don't you understand that you'll never pass the Massachusetts bar examination? And if through some quirk you happen to pass that exam, who do you think would ever hire you to represent them in a legal matter? And with that, and I still remember to this day, Jamal, being this many years ago now, with that, he walks off, his laughter and the cigarette smoke trailing behind him. Fast forward, 13 years later, I'm now the president of the Massachusetts Bar Association. Look at that. Yeah. And the school who thought that was great, invited me back to be the commencement speaker at the law school. Look at that. And so I go back out and I'm getting ready to give this speech and all. And I asked for Professor Quick. And because I'd like to let him know I've somehow survived despite his predictions. And it turns out he had died 6 months early. So I never got a chance to see him again to let him know that his prediction was a bit off. And we managed to struggle through somehow. So
yeah, I'm not surprised. We never shy away from a challenge, and we love to compete. And more importantly, it's how we're wired. We're here for a purpose, and we're not shy away from putting the work in. And I was curious, what's changed as far as the landscape from back there in the '60s to currently within the law firm and just in that industry in general?
Law profession. There are parts of it that are a plus, and parts of it are a minus.
Right.
On the plus side of the ledger, Jamal, and I think this applies beyond law and into a broader spectrum.
Absolutely. And waters are deep.
There are far more opportunities.
Okay.
There are far more opportunities. So when I started practicing law, you could get a job in government, or you could get a job in a small law firm, not a large one, a small law firm fairly readily. But to be in-house as a general counsel or on a legal staff of a company, or to be at a large law firm and have a chance to make partner, those opportunities are few and far between. It's much broader now. There are many more options. But at the end of the day, and this is the minus part of it, the end of the day, we're still people of color. At the end of the day, we don't get the presumption of competence.
Right.
If you and I were sitting in a room being interviewed and our credentials were equal to a couple of white people,
Right.
the white guys, their credentials would be presumed. Their competence is presumed. In many instances, not all, but in many instances, when it came to you and me, they would say, well, how did you get this far? Affirmative action? Were you a special case? And all that sort of thing. You have to prove the competence.
Who do you know? Or is it nepotism or something like that?
Exactly. And that's something that we still face today.
Yeah.
So I'm not suggesting that the people coming along today have it any easier than we do in many respects,
right.
Than we did, I should say.
Yeah.
But there are more opportunities. And quite frankly, Jamal, I've been very blessed in terms of opportunities, and I've tried to make the best of them.
No, absolutely. And that's something that is universally said when you're not around. When everyone I come across with who knows you, they always scratch their head about what is it and it's funny. I think I actually asked you this, like, what is it that you see in me that allow you to, make yourself accessible all the time? I tell people all the time, every time I call him, he calls me back. Every time I send him an email, he emails me back. And I'm not alone. So many other, there's countless. There's too many to name. They share that same sentiment because we love, respect, and honor, your accomplishments and your representation in these rooms that so few are able to get into. I guess it's a two-part question. What's the power of precedence in your field, right? That's something that came to mind.
That's right. Precedence is a good part of our league.
And then also, what is it about you that makes you so committed to making sure you help as many people as possible in your mentorship?
Well, okay. One of the things that enabled me to move along is I had some excellent mentors.
Yeah.
Excellent mentors, people who really took an interest in me. And they weren't all Black. Mm-hmm. They weren't all white. They weren't all older than me. They weren't all of my gender or race. Mm-hmm. But there were people who took an interest in me and had no agenda other than to give me good advice, right, direction and guidance. Right. And I say that I have it's not just a nice thing to do. I have an obligation to pay that forward. Right. So it's particularly now at this stage of my life, I can't think of anything more important to do than to try to help others advance in their careers. Right. And when I offer advice to people or direction or guidance, I don't expect that they will accept it in whole. They can accept a part of it, all of it, or none of it. Right. But I just want to make sure they have the benefit of, if they ask, what I think about a particular thing, and I'm going to make sure I give them the very best counsel that I possibly can. Right. So I think it's very important for us to help those who are coming along behind us in terms of where their career paths are. And they may be lawyers, they may not be lawyers, but I think it's a very important thing to do. And I try to make that a priority.
Yes, and these are folks who have occupations in all types of industry. Just like you said, it's just not exclusively in law. One of the things that we share in common is a love for sports.
Yes, we do.
love for sports.
Except you're an athlete, and I'm not.
Well, sometimes you're too cool, Wayne. Sometimes you fool me. I remember one of our first encounters, you was talking about squash and how you was competing there and things like that. I mean, how important, or what do you still do that as far as stress relieving, some of the day-to-day things, or just talk a little bit about that. If you no longer do it, just talk about when you used to do it.
Okay. Well, in high school, of course, I played football, basketball, and but I wasn't at the level.
The intramural. I'm about to say the intramural part, right?
Yeah. So, but I continued the basketball and touch football and squash and racquetball for many, many years. And even today, I make working out and exercise a priority because remember, I mentioned how important I believe, and most believe, the physical exercise and staying fit is, particularly as one is getting older. And as I've told you, in a few months, I'm going to be 80 years old.
I know, I'm so proud. I'm so proud. I remember when you made that declaration about turning 70.
Yeah.
You said, oh, do you know I'm going to be 70? I was like, oh. I know that mattered. That's beautiful.
Yeah. So I think that's an important part of my life. And what you speak about sports and athletes, one of the things I take great pride in about our school, our alma mater, Boston College, is that so many of our athletes of color at BC graduate.
Yes.
And you and I both know that unlike some institutions, which I wouldn't name, but there's no place to hide academically at Boston College.
Right.
You have to take the courses.
Right.
There's no basket weaving. There's no courses that are called gut courses.
Right. And and I shared this with you too a couple of times on this same note about I know a couple of other athletes at schools that will remain nameless. They had tests and it just had the map of the United States and it says locate the state of Texas. Which is longer, a centimeter or meter? So just to provide a color for the audience, But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No. So I take great pride in the fact that athletes of color, certainly to include you in that group, who have gone to BC, have made the most of not only their time on the athletic field, but in the classroom. And they come away from the place with a BC degree, which I think is a valuable accomplishment.
Yeah.
So I love sports, but I like to see the person who has the balance. They do what they're there for, the academics, and they excel in their given sport. And that to me is so important.
No, absolutely. And finally, we talk a lot about all the things that, you and I just discussed, and I appreciate your time as always. But one of the things that strike me while I'm talking to you, I know you go to the Cape. I know that's one of your hangout places, and you got that Sammy Davis cool to you, right? You always have. That's one of the things that laugh. You always laugh.
I'm a little taller than he was.
Absolutely.
And I can't dance or sing.
You can't. Well, actually, while on that note, Clarence Avant, the godfather of the music, have you ever ran into him? Are you familiar with him?
I've heard of him.
Okay.
I've heard of him, but I don't know him.
All right, you guys are that same ilk. You guys are that same ilk, Mr. Butt. But I was curious, when you travel abroad or even domestically,
yes,
is there some favorites of yours?
Oh yeah, the one country that both my wife Jackie and I have decided if we did not live in the United States would be New Zealand.
New Zealand, okay.
We live in New Zealand. We've been there 3 times. We've been to Italy at least a half a dozen times. That would be our second choice. But I'll tell you something interesting very quickly about New Zealand and the other place, Newfoundland in Canada.
Okay.
Those 2 places stick out in my mind as places that we visited where we didn't feel anything about race.
Okay.
Yeah, it was interesting. Everywhere else, there's always, how you have to be on your guard. You got to keep your eyes and ears open. Those 2 places, the concept of race seems to be far more relaxed than in our own country.
Yeah.
So New Zealand and Italy are our two favorite places.
All right, in closing,
Yes, sir.
I've made the adjustment, and I've accepted that I can't outwork my bad eating habits, right? I'm 40 now, Wayne. I'm about to be 41 in 2 weeks, right? So now a typical breakfast for me is boiled eggs and kale. I want to treat myself. I put a little olive oil, and a little lemon lime juice, whatever. What's some meals now that you enjoy, and what are also some meals that you wish you could have, but it no longer benefits you?
I'm a big steak guy, so I have to watch the intake of the beef.
Okay.
I don't do eggs and butter and stuff like that, but I like oatmeal. As you may remember from our breakfast.
With walnuts, yeah.
With walnuts and blueberries and maple syrup. That's my treat. I enjoy that very much. My wife Jackie is very careful about preparing healthy meals for the both of us, and so that's so important for us. And again, going back to the signs of success.
Yep.
Being physically healthy as one can.
That's awesome. Well, we're out of time, but Wayne, thank you for taking the time out your schedule, man. It's always pure joy talking to you, and I appreciate everything you told me, even little things like hey Jamal, make sure your credit's good. Hey Jamal, check on this, check on that, and that all served me well. So I just want to say thank you for your time. And I know people may not say it to your face, but you got a legion of people that are so happy, proud of you, and that love you. And what I find too is that sometimes people are not ready to or able to tell you that to your face. But I believe in giving you flowers while you can smell them and things of that nature,
Well, listen, in closing, I'd like to say I particularly appreciate that coming from you, a guy who's just half my age. I'm very proud of you and your accomplishments in a relatively short period of time, and just say to you, keep up the good work, and let's just make sure we stay in touch, even through this pandemic period.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
You do the same, my friend. Take care. Pleasure being with you. Pleasure being with you.
Always, always, always.
From that stoop down to Lennox, my mama argued with me for like 200 minutes, drinking brews till I'm finished. To the news, them interviews, they knew my position. I could lie for free, but that truth is expensive. So visit my site, yo, get an insight. What my living was like was bigger than life. Different women spending the night, no children in sight. I got fed up, but kept my head up like I'm willing to bite. My life doing bike tricks, touchdowns for Mike Vick. Stop on a dime and split right soon as your eye twitch. I was quite quick, not many was like this, waxing them like a candle. I guess I was quite lit. I heard they mad, I deserve to brag. I'm in my bottom line Birkin bag, and I ain't trying to waste a whole lot of time with this rhyme. But after this, we getting straight to the bottom line.